Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek A Day. I have another novel suggestion for you here. I just finished reading for the first time a trilogy that was released to celebrate the 50th anniversary. It was a collaboration between Greg Cox, David Mack, Dayton Ward, and Kevin Dillmore. All names that should sound familiar to those that read a lot of Star Trek books. I'm glad I picked up this trilogy as it was a solid Star Trek adventure, although I do have to say that the books were a little uneven, although it's just to my own personal taste. I think it's more the differences in the writing styles, even though it was a collaboration between the different sections, as well as the tone that had to kind of change between different parts. This Legacies trilogy, in the first one, Captain to Captain, largely focuses on number one, Una, during TOS not long after the journey to Babel, and she returns from her captaincy to visit the Enterprise, and we get a few nice character moments between her and Spock and a little bit of their history together. And I should note, obviously, 50th anniversary, this came out long before Strange New Worlds was ever a thing, so it was really interesting to see how that history and relationship was written. And Captain Una doesn't quite reveal her reasons for her visit. She's very secretive and ends up stealing a device from Captain Kirk's quarters and escaping as the Enterprise chases after her, going into space that is disputed with the Klingons to a planet that she had visited many years before when she was a lieutenant serving under Captain April, which that's one of the more fascinating things about this book, particularly within the first one. We do get a glimpse of a lot of characters that aren't in quite as many Star Trek books. We have Captain April, goes into a little bit with Christopher Pike, and then into the TOS era under Captain Kirk, and that's a lot of fun to see, and to see a younger version of Una, of a character that, again, just has not had a ton of story throughout the novels, a little bit here and there, and it's fun to see in the flashbacks that it goes into, revealing what this secret key is that she has taken, a secret that's passed down from captain to captain of the Enterprise, and how it relates to a mission gone wrong many years ago, one of her first away missions, where she blames herself for the loss of several crew members as they encountered a world with primitive native inhabitants who are besieged by an advanced alien race, very slug-like creatures that turns out are actually from a different universe and perceive themselves to be the only truly intelligent, sentient beings, and everything else is beneath them. They are going to spread out throughout our universe through a gateway, through a large device, to which this key is of great importance. And Una's mission, what she wanted to do, which is obviously not a sanctioned mission, is to take that secret device and try and rescue these officers, not revealing too much of what happened to them, to ease her conscience in her aging years, and to right a wrong. But things go wrong as a Romulan spy aboard the Enterprise ends up with this key, with this device, and this exciting, very TOS feeling adventure goes into new territory by the end of the first book. And again, trying to be a little vague, because this is a suggestion to go ahead and read these, and I'd love to hear down below, if you've read these before, years ago, maybe when they first came out, what you think of them. But from that, moving into the second one goes into a little more with the politics of the age, and the tension between the Klingons and the Federation, still under the gun and the watchful eye of the Organian peace treaty, and the Romulans trying to manipulate the situation to get them to engage in military conflict, trying to facilitate the downfall of their two greatest rivals. So you get a lot of Romulan treachery and a lot of important historical political figures of the time, like Sarek, Chancellor Gorkon of the Klingon Empire, a lot of notable figures from the time. And in this second and third one, we also get a welcome surprise as McCoy's daughter Joanna becomes one of the central characters for bits and pieces of this story. And it's one of only a handful of instances where I've read where she is a part of a story. There are a couple more out there, but again, she's a character we don't get to read a lot about. And tensions rise, of course, in the third chapter, Legacies. So you have the Romulan threat, the threat of conflict between the Federation and the Klingons, and of course this invading force from another universe, from another reality. And one of the other elements that I liked within the second and third one in particular was a look into some of the Romulan and Klingon characters that are involved and what's happening aboard their ships and their crew as things are happening along, so it doesn't just take place from the perspective of the Starfleet aspect of the story, and I did really like that as well. And so overall, it's not a favorite trilogy of mine within Star Trek, but it was a very solid read, and I think a story that's worth checking out. It was pretty fun, and a lot of the characters were well written, and again, it was nice to see a lot of characters that we don't see a lot of, yet there are little moments to shine throughout here. The overall, the first one is by far my favorite. That one, to me, just feels like something that would have been a really good TOS era episode that's expanded upon, that blows up into a much larger, broader story with the consequences of what happens during the course of the first novel. So that one, even just the tone and style, I think maybe partially due to a writing style preference, I don't know, it's something about that first one, just the general feeling of it to me was more enjoyable and is one I'm more likely to have the itch to reread. And then of course if I do that, I'll end up rereading the whole thing, because it is a pretty solid trilogy. It is a lot of fun, but just not one of my absolute favorites. Definitely one that's still worth checking out, particularly if you like TOS era adventures and you're interested again in seeing some of these characters that don't get a whole lot of story.